Good morning, everyone. My name is Brad Shaik, and I'm a mentor with Tri-County chapter of SCORE. We're located in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. SCORE is the nation's largest network of volunteer business mentors and is dedicated to helping small businesses. SCORE is a nonprofit organization and is a resource partner of the Small Business Administration. SCORE provides a wide range of services to new and established business owners, including free mentoring, webinars, and courses on demand. We provide a library of online resources, and we host many local events such as today's webinar. This session is being sponsored by SCORE chapters in suburban Philadelphia area, including SCORE Bucks County, SCORE Montgomery County, and SCORE Tri-County. Each chapter has a website, and on those local websites, you can request a mentor, find out information about upcoming local and national workshops, browse a library of resources, or obtain information on volunteering to become a mentor. During today's webinar, all participants will be on mute, but you can submit questions using the Q&A function. Today, we're pleased to have with us Kim Stout and Sonia Smith from the Eastern PA District Office of the Small Business Administration, who will present information on the economic relief and programs currently available to small businesses. Thank you, Kim and Sonia, and at this time, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Brad. As Brad mentioned, my name is Kim Stout. I'm an Economic Development Specialist with the U.S. Small Business Administration. My coworker, Sonia Smith, our Public Information Officer, is also online with us today. Sonia is going to be handling the Q&A box. So as we go through the PowerPoint presentation this morning, she is available to answer questions, and then with time allotted at the end, any unanswered questions, we will try to get to your questions within the 60 minutes that we have today. So we'll be going until about noon. Some of this information, if you joined me last week, is going to be repetitive, but we do have new information as well. So we're happy that you have joined us because, as we have learned in the last 10 months, information comes out quickly. It can be confusing, and we want to make sure that we're giving our small businesses the opportunity to learn about the programs that are here to support them during this time and any updates or changes to programs. So with the Small Business Administration, you know, we have been almost 99% of our time since March has been in recovery. We typically assist with starting, growing, expanding your small business. But of course, we're focused on the COVID-19 relief programs that are available to you today. Again, this information changes. So please note that the information that I'm going over today is as of January 17th. This has all been through the Economic Aid Act. Originally in 2020, we were dealing with the CARES Act, but as of December 27th, with the passing of the Economic Aid Act, the updates to the programs occur under that program. Our website, SBA.gov and SBA.gov Coronavirus Relief, is where you can find most updated information. There's tons of stuff out there. I see things on social media that I kind of chuckle when I read it, and I'm wondering who's coming up with this information. But please, for accurate and correct information, please make sure it's coming from a reliable source, such as Treasury or the SBA. All updated information is on SBA.gov, again, through the PPP page or the Coronavirus Relief page. We appreciate SCORE hosting us today. If you have not already, or you haven't been in touch recently, please make sure that you get a mentor. It's no cost to you and is very, very valuable, especially through these times and trying to sustain, pivot, recreate, and survive. You know, our SCORE mentors are working very closely with the Eastern Pennsylvania SBA District Office to stay in touch with information that's updated and accurate for you guys as small business owners. You can find a SCORE mentor at score.org. Most of you probably are familiar with our hosts at Tri-County today, Montgomery County, and Bucks County. But I do suggest that you reach out and utilize the sources and resources that SCORE has, because it's going to be very helpful during the times that we're experiencing now, but also whenever we're focusing on growing our small businesses. The SBA also funds a number of other organizations to support small businesses. We have our small business development centers. We have 16 of them in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They work in collaboration with SCORE to make sure that we're getting our resources out to small businesses to support them during this time. We also have our women's business centers. We have 4 in Pennsylvania, but 2 in Eastern Pennsylvania, 1 in Philadelphia, 1 in Lancaster City. And if you are a veteran, we do have a veteran business outreach center in Virginia, and we have a veteran business outreach coordinator in our office, Shannon DeGilio. So if you're a veteran and you're looking for additional assistance, please let us know. The economic injury disaster loan, this is information that I covered last week, and it remains the same as of now. The economic injury disaster loan was declared available to those suffering because of the pandemic of COVID-19 as of March of last year. It was set to close on December 31st. However, it is going to remain open through December 2021, depending on availability of funds. This is available to most small businesses. If you fall into these categories listed here, you are eligible to apply. If you have applied for the economic injury disaster loan already, you do not want to reapply. It's going to flag as a duplicate application. This is a program that you could only apply once for. If you're a small business, small agricultural or aquacultural business, you may apply. Most private nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and houses of worship are eligible. If you are a sole proprietor or independent contractor, you may also apply. And in times of disaster, we allow our owners of rental property to apply as well. This is a loan. The maximum is $2 million. However, with the pandemic, our Office of Disaster Assistance has given a maximum loan amount of $150,000. You do have 30 years to pay this back, and for small businesses, the interest rate is 3.75%. If you are a nonprofit, your interest rate is 2.75%. If you decide to pay this off before the 30-year term is up, there's no penalty for the prepayment. This is a working capital loan. You can use it to pay debts and payroll, accounts payable, and bills that you cannot pay because of the pandemic, because of the COVID-19 and not being able to open or having reduced sales. Things, it's there for working capital so that you can pay those debts. It's not for expansion. It's not to replace sales that you have lost. We are not requiring collateral. There's no real estate collateral. We are not requiring collateral for loans under $25,000. If you have a loan that is above $25,000, we're just putting a blanket UCC one against your business assets. Any loans greater than $200,000, we will ask for a personal guarantee. You can apply for the economic injury disaster loan that's COVID related if you have an existing disaster loan. So maybe you had something because of Hurricane Sandy. We did have some recent disaster programs open because of freezing or flooding. You cannot apply twice for a COVID-related economic injury disaster loan, but if you have a prior disaster loan and you now need one because of COVID-19, you may apply. This is the link that you can use. It is a quick application. The first thing I'm going to say to you, though, is make sure that information is correct. Make sure that you double check your EIN numbers, your social security numbers. Make sure that you're putting accurate financial information in, and your bank account is accurate. We have had some complications and challenges because people have put in their wrong bank account information, or they have put in the wrong EIN number So it causes an issue to make sure that we're verifying information, and it holds up the process if you put incomplete or inaccurate information. The district office does not have updates on current economic injury disaster loan applications. So you need to make sure that you reach out to our customer service center at 800-659-2955 or to the SBA email address there, disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. Again, our district office does not have access to the system, so we can't give you updates on applications. And a lot of the questions that you need to have answered, you have to contact ODA, Office of Disaster Assistance, directly for that information. With the passing of the Economic Aid Act, there was a change in forgiveness with the economic injury disaster loan advances. So with the CARES Act that was passed in spring of 2020, with the application that you may have submitted for economic injury disaster loans, you had the option of clicking whether you wanted to be considered for an advance or not. This was up to $10,000, $1,000 per employee. If you also received a Paycheck Protection Program loan in 2020 and then applied for forgiveness, we were asking for your EIDL advance, how much you received, and the loan application. And we were deducting that amount from your forgiveness from the Paycheck Protection Program. With the passing of the Economic Aid Act, we are repealing that deduction. We are no longer asking for you to deduct the advance from your Paycheck Protection Program loan forgiveness. However, please note that you do not have to do anything if you did apply for forgiveness and put your advance there. The SBA is working on reconciling that with our Paycheck Protection Program lenders. So for those loans that were remitted, where SBA remitted a forgiveness amount to the PPP and was reduced by the EIDL advance, we are automatically going to remit a reconciliation payment to the Paycheck Protection Program lender. Okay. And that lender is going to be responsible for notifying you, the borrower, of the reconciliation. The lender is going to also be responsible for re-amortizing the loan and notifying the borrower of the amount of the next payment due, or telling you that the loan has been paid in full, whatever the circumstances may be, whatever is applicable. If the amount remitted by the SBA to the Paycheck Protection Program lender exceeds the remaining principal balance of the PPP loan, whether you made a payment, whatever the circumstances may be, the PPP lender must remit the excess amount, including accrued interest paid by the borrower, to the borrower. So basically what this slide is saying is that if you had applied for forgiveness, you included your EIDL advance in the amount to reduce the amount of forgiveness, we are working with the Paycheck Protection Program lender to reconcile that, and your lender will be in touch with you to let you know, whatever the cases may be, what the circumstances and conclusion of that is going to be. Okay, so now we're going to roll into the Paycheck Protection Program. For the Paycheck Protection Program, we opened last week for minority, underserved, veteran, and woman-owned businesses to apply for their first round of the Paycheck Protection Program if they had not applied already. We launched it through our community financial institutions, and they had the first chance of applying for their first round of PPP. We encourage you, if you are looking for lenders, to use Lender Match. You can certainly, your application will go to lenders that are taking applications. Last week, we were making sure that those applications or requests were going to our CFIs to prioritize our minority, veteran, and women-owned and underserved businesses. At this point in time, the Paycheck Protection Program applications are open and will remain open through March 31st with funding availability. We are working with our small businesses they can apply at any lending institution now that is offering the Paycheck Protection Program. That includes all of our SBA lenders, our FDICs, our credit unions, eligible non-bank lenders, and farm credit system institutions. We encourage you to reach out to the bank that you do business with already. Ask them if they're accepting Paycheck Protection Program applications. It is a little bit easier to apply for the PPP when you already have a banking relationship with an institution. If for some reason they are not accepting applications, they've chosen not to go into this round of PPP, you can go to sba.gov and look for lenders that are participating. You will be receiving this slide deck later on today, and where we have the hyperlinks where it says click here to find lending institutions, you'll be able to click on those links and get to the websites quickly to find lenders if needed. All right, for the Paycheck Protection Loan, we're just going to review the eligibility, okay? This is for small businesses together with their affiliates that have 500 or fewer employees. This includes all our sole proprietors, our independent contractors, our self-employed people, 501c3s, our 501c19 organizations, and news organizations. We do have some more entities that are included in the Economic Aid Act that can apply now for the Paycheck Protection Program. If you are going to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program Second Draw, your eligibility changes to 300 employees or fewer. Okay, so with the Second Draw, there are different requirements, and it's more strict in size. So first round, you can apply up to 500 employees or fewer. With the Second Draw, it's 300 employees or fewer. Other organizations that are included in eligibility are housing cooperatives, our 501c6 organizations, and marketing destination organizations with no more than 300 employees. That's a change from when this program was released in 2020. Entities with no more than 500 employees in the accommodation and food sector, that's NAICS code 72, you are eligible to apply. Within the Second Draw of PPP, that changes to 300 employees or fewer as well. You must comply with the size standards for this program, the eligibility criteria, and certain limitations that are listed. Sonia and I are using interim final rules that were released from SBA when we're answering questions and so forth. Those links will be sent out to you as well with the slide deck later. So when you have questions about certain things like eligibility criteria, those are all listed on the links that we're sending. The PPP First Draw application is Form 2483. Again, on the slide deck, this link will take you right to the application. There is a difference between the First Draw application and the Second Draw application. So if this is the first time that you're applying for the Paycheck Protection Program, you want to make sure that you use SBA Form 2483. What is allowed for the use of funds? Well, with this particular program, you are to use it for 60% of funds must go to payroll costs. If you use less than that, your forgiveness amount will be reduced. So please keep in mind, you should need to pay at least 60% of the proceeds towards payroll. You can also use it towards mortgage interest, rent, utilities, and we've also expanded a few other new expenses that are included in the payroll protection program. Workers' protection costs related to COVID, uninsured property damage costs caused by looting or vandalism, certain supplier costs, and operation expenditures as well. And this will be, and when you receive the email from SCORE later, we have certain pay pages defining things. And with this particular one on the interim final roll, page 44, it shows what qualifies as payroll costs. So it will define what the supplier costs are and what operation expenditures are. With the Paycheck Protection Program, currently, you can pick your covered period anywhere from 8 weeks to 24 weeks. When the program first was released last spring, you had 8 weeks to use it, and it was at the time of disbursement that 8 weeks started. When you are dispersed the loan, you have a choice as to what time period you're going to use it, but you have to use it between 8 and 24 weeks after disbursement. With the second draw of the Paycheck Protection Program, eligibility does change. Eligible borrowers who previously received the first draw may apply for a second draw. However, the maximum second draw is $2 million. Loan terms are the same as the first draw, which is 5 years. You have to expend or will be expending the proceeds of the first PPP loan for eligible expenses before receiving the second draw. So you have to make sure that if you receive the Paycheck Protection Program loan, you have used those funds or are going to be using those funds before your second draw is dispersed. You have to have 300 employees or less. And this is a big one. You have to make sure that you have incurred a documentable reduction of at least 25% in gross receipts comparable to quarters in 2019 and 2020. The example that Sonia and I have been using is look at what your quarter from 2019 was, your second quarter, that's April, May, and June. Look at that from 2019, compare it to 2020. Is there a reduction of at least 25%? All right, you need to have, if you're comparing quarter one, 2019, you have to compare quarter one, 2020. We do have the application available for the second draw. It is different from the first application, as I mentioned earlier. So please use SBA form 2483-SD. You use the 2.5 times average monthly payroll cost from 2019 or 2020. And please note that if you have a NAICS code that starts with 7.2, and this is in the accommodation and food services industry, you are allowed to use 3.5 times the average monthly cost for payroll either in 19 or 20, because this is one of our hardest hit sectors. They have allowed the accommodation and food services industry to request a higher amount of payroll. Okay. We are still waiting on additional changes to the Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness. So please understand we're still developing applications for forgiveness, especially for those loans that are $150,000 or less. What we have seen take effect already is that the economic injury disaster loan advance is not going to be deducted from the Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness. Loan proceeds are spent on costs and eligible expenses. Remember, you must use at least 60% of the proceeds on spent payroll costs. You must maintain employee headcount and compensation levels. The maximum that you can, let me just go back one more. The maximum compensation for Paycheck Protection Program was and remains $100,000. So when you're calculating your payroll cost, if you have an employee who makes $150,000 on an annual basis, you have to reduce that to $100,000. That remains the same. The Paycheck Protection loan terms for the first draw remain $10 million maximum loan amount. The second draw, your second request, is $2 million. The interest rate remains at 1%. The first payment is deferred to the date the SBA remits the forgiveness amount to the borrower's lender, or 10 months after the end of the borrower's loan forgiveness covered period. if the borrower does not apply for forgiveness. You have this is a term of 5 years for the loan maturity. We do not ask for collateral. We do not ask for personal guarantees. There are no borrower or lender fees payable to SBA, and the Paycheck Protection Program will be available through March 31st of this year, 2021. So now I'm going to completely switch programs, and we're going to talk about the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. This information was just released at the end of last week. We still are waiting on additional guidance, but we are going to share with you today what is available through the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant as of today. We are not accepting applications for this particular program. We will send out press releases. Information will come out via social media. It will be noted when this is available for you to apply for if you fit the qualifications. But please remember, and I'll say it over and over again, for the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, we're sharing information about what the program is. However, we are not accepting applications yet. This is going to allow up to $15 billion in grants to applicants who meet the eligibility requirements and have been affected by COVID-19. The SBA Office of Disaster Assistance is going to be administering the program. SBA Office of Disaster Assistance has been working with the EIDL program, and they are gearing up to work through this particular program as well. Eligible applicants include those that may qualify for grants. Well, if you're eligible for the program, you may qualify for grants up to 40% of the gross earned revenue, and the maximum single grant award is going to be limited to $10 million. At least $2 billion of the total program is reserved for eligible small operators with up to 50 full-time employees. So they are trying to make sure that this is helping our small businesses as well. This is a list of eligible applicants. We are waiting for, well, the website lists these as well, but we're going to be getting additional information from SBA. So if you have questions as to whether or not you fall into any of these eligible or types, we will get you to the correct website to make sure. We'll have IFRs, things like that to go through for you. This is for theatrical producers, live performing art organizations, museums, zoos, aquariums, movie theaters, talent representatives, live venue operators or promoters, any subsidiaries of these organizations that might meet the eligible requirements. You must have been in operation as of February 29th, 2020. You must not have received a Paycheck Protection loan on or before December 27th, 2020. I'm going to repeat that again. You must not have received the Paycheck Protection loan on or after December 27th of 2020. You are not prohibited from applying for the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant if you have already had a COVID-19 EIDL loan or plan to apply for one, and you had to receive your first draw of PPP prior to December 27th. There's a lot of programs out there. This is a quick summary of our SBA programs so far. And if you're trying to decide which program is best for you, this is just a quick slide to show you, what each program is offering. With the Paycheck Protection Program, you're using is primarily to cover your payroll costs for employees. It does not include independent contractors. The loan is forgivable if you've used it appropriately. There's obviously certain standards and eligibility requirements that you have to meet. The Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, you have to prove eligibility requirements are met. It allows for broader use of funds, and it does not need to be repaid. With the COVID Economic Injury Disaster Loan, this is a loan, and it's primarily for working capital that you use to cover expenses that you couldn't pay because of the pandemic. It is a loan, you pay it back. Applying for the PPP after December 27, 2020, or the Shuttered Venues Operator Grant does not have any impact on your COVID EIDL eligibility. When you're trying to calculate your Shuttered Venue Operators Grant funds, it's going to be dependent on when the organization was in operation. If you were in operation on January 1, 2019, the lesser of an amount equal to 40% of the 2019 gross earned revenue, or $10 million. If you were in operation after January 1, 2019, the lesser amount of the average monthly gross revenue for each full month you were in operation during 2019 multiplied by 6, or $10 million. Okay, so what I want to share with you on that is that if you, let's say, were in operation February 15th of 2019, you had February through December. Okay, you have to have full months. You can't include partial months. You're going to take your total gross revenue for each month, divide it by 10 because you were in operation for 10 months, and then the average ends up being whatever it is, and you multiply it by 6. Okay, so there's more information on the website that walks you through this. Big thing today is to walk away that if you were in operation before January 1, 2019, or if you were in operation after January 1, 2019, you have different ways to calculate what you're requesting. The SBA, we're currently setting up of how you're going to apply for the program. We are not accepting applications as of yet. What we're trying to do is have small businesses who suffered the greatest economic loss will be the first applications processed. All right, so right there is the schedule. And again, this information will be emailed to you after today's presentation. Oh, let me go back there. For the Shuttered Venue Operating Grant, this is the allowable use of funds. All right, so please take a look at that. Payroll costs, rent payments, utility payments, mortgage payments, debt payments, worker protection, payments to independent contractors. Remember, that's not allowed in Paycheck Protection Program, but it's being allowed in the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. Ordinary business expenses, admin costs, state, local fees and taxes, operating leases in effect as of February 15th, 2020, insurance payment and advertising production, transportation, and capital expenditures. But they don't want you to use advertising, production, transportation, and capital expenditures as the primary use of funds. Grantees may not use award funds to buy real estate, make payments on loans originated after February 15th, 2020, make investments or loans, make contributions or other payments to on the behalf of political parties, political committees, or candidates for election, and you may not use it for any other use prohibited by the administrator. This is a grant, so grantee record keeping is a must. Grantees will be required to maintain documentation demonstrating their compliance with the eligibility of the programs and other requirements of the program. You must retain employment records for 4 years following the receipt of the grant and retain all records for at least 3 years. We will have the application and additional guidelines posted when they become available, and any additional information or questions can be emailed to S as in Sam, V as in Victor, O as in operator, grant@sba.gov. Okay, so that is the conclusion of the PowerPoint presentation today. I know I see some questions. I'm sure Sonia's been busy. We do ask that for any additional information to stay up to date and to make sure you're receiving accurate information, you visit our programs at sba.gov/coronavirus relief. As soon as information is released, that's the first place it goes. You may also sign up for email updates. Press releases come out there this way. Any other additional programs that we update will come out this way. You can go to sba.gov/updates, and you can also follow our district office on Twitter at SBA_Eastern PA. And I believe that is it. So we can open it up for questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Kim. Right now, there aren't any questions. So as we wait for more questions to get into the chat, I just want to let you know on some of the things that SCORE will be sending to you, as Kim mentioned, in addition to the PowerPoint. So we will be sending you 2 IFRs, 2 interim final rules. One will be on the first draw PPP, and it will answer questions on how much can you borrow? What can the PPP loan be used for? What exactly are payroll costs to determine the loan amount? What documentation do you need on establishing that payroll amount? And when we send it to you, we'll even have those pages references for some of those questions. When you look at the IFR, there is a table of contents with all of these questions on it. So it'll be very easy for you to find the specific answer for your specific situation. Also on IFR, the second one on PPP, the second draw, there will be information on how do you calculate that 25% revenue reduction. For example, what if you were not in business all 4 quarters of 2019 as compared to 2020? We had some questions on the gross receipts. That is explained, as is affiliates. And again, there's also information on the documentation for the PPP second draw. Finally, we had some questions on, I'm a particular type of a business, whether I'm a S Corp, or I'm self-employed and have no employees, or I'm an LLC. How do I calculate the maximum PPP loan amount? So there will be another document that we will be sending you that will have answers to those questions. So for example, on question 9, it tells you if you don't have the documentation that is requested, what other documentation can you use? It'll talk about gross pay and fringe benefits and things like that. So a lot of your specific questions that pertain to your specific business, you will have the answers in the 2 IFRs and how to calculate the maximum loan amount. So those will all be attachments.
Okay, and Sonia, we actually do have 2 questions that came in while you were talking. One was, if you were denied the EIDL grant, can you apply for any of the other programs? Well, if you fit the criteria for the other programs, for example, if you applied for the economic injury disaster loan and it was denied for whatever the circumstances may be, you can certainly apply for the Paycheck Protection Program if you fit the criteria that's required. Do you have payroll? Do you have proof of payroll? Those types of things that we went over. So you may be eligible for the program that we talked about with Paycheck Protection Program. And of course, our Shuttered Venue Operators Grant is specific towards that industry. And that criteria you can find on sba.gov/coronavirus relief to see exactly what the program, who's allowed to apply for it.
Yeah, thanks. And Kim, I just want to add in regards to that question, if you were denied the EIDL grant, you should have received a letter specifically detailing from our Office of Disaster Assistance what the reason for denial was. And in that letter, you do have a period of time where you are able to submit documentation and ask for a reconsideration. So any questions on that? In our PowerPoint presentation today, we did have the phone number and the email address for our SBA Office of Disaster Assistance on any questions on EIDLs.
I'm pulling up that page now. There's another question. Go ahead, Sonia.
Yeah, so I'll ask the other question while you pull up the page. I am confused on PPP. If I received PPP last year based upon calculations and used all funds, why would I be eligible for a second draw? You would be eligible for a second draw if you had a 25% decrease in revenues on quarter-to-quarter comparison from 2019 to 2020.
Right. So, you know, if you fit those requirements, you're eligible. If you exceeded in gross revenues, you would not be. So there's a couple of caveats that are thrown into the PPP second draw, and if you fit, go ahead and apply.
Can you please cover the information on the SBA 7A loan period being paid for a period of time coming up of $9,000 per month? Not at this time, we cannot cover it. SBA is still gathering the forms and the guidance for that. So stay tuned.
Okay. I understand that SBA is not accepting applications for the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant now, but is there an estimate on when SBA will begin to accept these applications?
No, we cannot, we do not know when that date will be. However, SBA will announce that information. That's why we encourage you to follow us on Twitter if you're on social media, and subscribe to our emails to get the information via email when it becomes available.
Yep, and I did put up this slide again on how to apply. Please understand that we're prioritizing the businesses who have suffered the greatest economic loss. So first priority, it looks like it's the first 14 of grants awards. Second priority is the next 14, and then third priority is beginning 20 to 8 days after first and second priority awards are made. So there is a time frame, and you know, like Sonia said, as soon as we have information, it will be released. Okay, and that looks like all the questions that we have in the Q&A, unless somebody wants to ask something else. Okay, well, at this point in time, what I'll say is thank you very much for joining us. We will continue to work with SCORE to make sure that we have updates and information out there via webinars, and look forward to you know, our information coming from SCORE about today's PowerPoint, the interim final rule links to the specific programs. And Brad, I'll hand it over to you so that you can close it out then if there's no questions.